That's fine. He can join.
Well, apparently it's not letting him.
I don't think it's the technology that's not letting Andrew in.
It's singled him out. It's hateful, anti-Andrew software.
Should he join
All
through
right.
like Chrome or something else? Or
Yes, I told him Chrome. I told him.
Through Chrome.
it says, "Yep, that's all I use," but you know,
That was a little, like gang, yeah, it's all I use.
Oh
exactly.
man. Well, for all of those who are watching us now live, now that we are live, we're trying to get Andrew in here
Yes.
so you know what's going on. Sending another email. Let's see if this link's any different. I don't think it is. All right, ready? Here we go. Oh, that's the YouTube link. That isn't going to help.
Yep.
you.
Cormac, you look like you're holding an old school remote control.
Nope. Wait, say something.
You trying to mute me?
Damn it! Doesn't work.
Like this. Like this.
Yes.
There's something with the big buttons on it. I don't know what to tell Andrew.
Welcome to the hot zone, everybody.
He's missing out.
All right.
Unfortunately.
Not yet. It's not missing out yet.
Well, you know.
Well,
know what
the funny
to
thing
tell.
about it, I will say this, and Andrew has heard this from me a million times. Like we said, hey, let's like log in 15 minutes before it starts so that we can get all our snafus worked out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In Andrew's world, that means log in 2 minutes after we're supposed to start to figure out the bugs.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but you know, I accidentally did that one time. With
Just once.
Just once. You know, and then I'm sitting there. Everybody else has got their fancy little, backgrounds that are all matching, and then here's me with like, the house behind me and all this other stuff, and people are like texting me, change your background. Clicking out. Trying to,
Yeah.
I have
Whenever
been
people
trying to
forget
get
that
in.
kind of stuff. All right, I'm gonna look and see.
You know what IT says? Do what IT says. If all else fails, reboot.
He claims that he's been trying to get into the thing since 6 on the dot. So I don't know if he's proving you right or wrong, Bob.
Andrew's many things, but I don't believe him to be a liar. So,
or punctual.
What else is he? Tell us all the other things.
He's not punctual, and he'll be the first one to admit that. His superpower would be anything that would help his ability to be more on time.
Well, I think while you maybe are texting with him, let's welcome everybody. Let's welcome
everybody.
As you can see, figuring this out as we go here. So welcome to the live stream and a little happy hour, a little break in the normal day-to-day schedule. And we've got Bob Borson from Life of an Architect. We're trying to get Andrew Hawkins from that same podcast onto this live stream. And then we've got Cormac and myself, Evan. So nice to see everybody.
Not sure which way he is. He's that way.
So you never know.
So Cormac.
Yes, Cormac. As
this
the name tag says.
Just done this. It's better.
It's good.
Backwards. Yeah.
That's a football reference, Evan.
I don't. Yeah. Sorry.
So I have a question for you, Evan.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody. Prost, Skull, all those.
Slancha.
You wearing earmuffs, Bob? Are you cold?
And me? No, because I'm dressed appropriately.
Yeah. Nice.
Because apparently it's like maybe 72 degrees.
Well, okay, so first you guys have to understand. My house, it's palatial. I need to acknowledge that it is large.
We can tell by the echo. Yeah, the echo is kind of deafening. Yeah.
I'm in servants' quarters, subsection B. So we have 4 people that are occupying like ancillary rooms right now. So we have 4 people in 4 different bedrooms and offices, kind of thing. Oh, he showed up.
He's there. Look it.
You had to give me the right link, I guess. Apparently,
I emailed it to you like a week ago, man. Come on.
Well, I know. I clicked on like 3 different links or whatever. I don't know. I also
Hey, you sound
restarted my
amazing.
computer.
You sound amazing, by the
You
way.
did IT.
Really good.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I did IT. I just restarted my computer. So maybe that was it. I don't know. It could have been because I had 850 tabs open in Chrome. And so I was like, okay, I'll just kill it and start over.
Andrew
So I lost
always sounds good. Have you look? I'm telling you right now. Despite the fact that we've been doing this as long as we have, which is nothing compared to you guys, we start off every call with, "God, you sound amazing."
But it never. I don't think it ever sounds that way in the actual episode.
No, it's like you need to figure out a way to do like voiceover work.
I'm logging in real quick to YouTube. I just got a text from somebody that said it's not working.
Oh God!
Just so you know. So go ahead.
We need
continue.
We need to make it. We need to make sure everyone knows that
More technical
McCormick,
difficulties.
Andrew, and myself, we're just pawns on Evan's chessboard.
All right. It's
You
public
know,
now.
I mean,
It's public now.
good job there, Director of Digital Practice.
Hey! I got people for that.
Aren't you? I was to say, aren't you supposed? This is your thing, man.
Man,
I got people for that. Jeez.
we're starting.
Ooh.
All right.
How long is this going on for? Because if it's salty, like 3 minutes in,
Yeah.
could get
Hey,
worse.
everybody. Say hi to everybody.
Are we there now?
Hey,
Hi to everybody.
We're actually live.
Now, so were we
No.
not live before?
We weren't, and so like we're learning as we go. Isn't that the?
I think you might be learning because we're just looking at you on our screens while you go, hold on, it's not working.
Stop. Let me twist some knobs. Let me push
Let me
some
fix
buttons.
it.
Yeah, get behind the curtain. Fix it.
Oh yeah. Where's my curtain?
Andrew's got a
You
curtain.
I was gonna say there's a curtain
Yeah.
behind Andrew.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, you all
Oh, well.
sound amazing. So let's go around the horn here. Why don't you start out, Cormac, and say hello to everybody? Say hi.
Hello and cheers.
Cheers.
Slancho to
We
y'all.
got Bob. We got
What do you-
Andrew. We got Bob from Life of an Architect podcast. Say hello.
Hey, everybody, I'm Bob.
Bumble.
Hola, everyone. I'm Andrew.
There we go. And I'm Evan. And thanks for joining us. We don't really know. Like we're cutting our teeth here. This is the first of its kind. No one's done this before. Just so you guys know.
Like no one ever. Was this the
No.
first in recorded history?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Exactly.
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, totally.
We're
I'm actually
trailblazers.
coming from the moon. It's where I'm.
You look like it.
He's the floating head.
This is the moon. Look at this moon
Oh.
here.
I thought it was the North Pole.
Are you a gnome?
Not enough red. Can I tell you? So in my office,
Well,
we had this whole thing, and we decided that we were going to do some kind of Christmas thing. And one of the partners says, "And we're making you Santa Claus." And I go, "Wait a minute." I go, "That doesn't even make sense. Are you saying I'm Santa Claus because I have white hair and white beard? Because, if you get the suit, it comes with the hair and the beard, right? Like anybody can have that.
A real beard
I
is
don't-
always better, though. A real white beard
Oh,
is
yeah.
always
but
better.
It's
Because
not
when
like it's
somebody was like,
wrong.
tugs on it and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
And I definitely don't have a bowl full of jelly.
No, you
I
can
mean,
borrow
like,
that from me.
I was like, I can lend you some of mine. I think I might have 3 or 4 bowls.
I mean, I was like, I just go to the CA department. All those guys, you put the beard and the wig on them, they got the rest of it. All the CA guys are ready to be Santa right now.
Yeah.
So what happened to our technical director?
I don't know. Apparently he
I
quit.
know.
This
Are we
is-
live and we just have no idea what's happening now?
So should we
no,
talk
he-
about something? Because if I was tuning in to this, I think I'd
I mean,
leave.
we could totally talk about. Well, so let's talk about what we're drinking.
Wow. All right. Super exciting. We're all drinking beer.
Nope.
You're not
What you got?
drinking beer. Are you drinking?
I'm not drinking beer.
You drinking that Kahlua milk thing that you
Yep.
posted like a week ago?
Having a little White Russian.
Yeah.
I can't have beer. I got work to do later. If I have a beer, I just want to go to sleep.
Oh, now it said, "Wow, what's happening?
I
You are not
apologize.
part of the."
That was messed up. That was me. That was the software. I clicked a button and it screwed everything. So apologize. We're learning. We're learning.
He was the only one on YouTube at that time. which that's
Yeah.
fine, right? That's okay.
Is it actually on and going?
I'm looking. I'm checking. Oh my gosh. This isn't easy here, people.
I mean, it looks like you're just pushing buttons.
I kind of am.
It says video unavailable. This video is private.
Yeah, I'm going in. I'm going in.
Oh, you have YouTube open as well? That's okay.
Well, I
for me to do?
actually just
There we go.
clicked on the
It should be up now.
share button, copied the link, and I just wanted to go in there to see if it was.
Yeah,
running.
so I was in the stream chat here, and there was like a
Yep,
little link.
It's up now.
Yeah, and so when I hover over it to actually type in the chat for everybody to see, because I wanted to respond here for the people who have chatted, a new button shows up right when I hover over that, and it just like nuked everything. So my apologies.
All right. Well, I got it pulled up, but I muted it. So
Yeah,
at
that's
least
what I did.
We can acknowledge. Hey,
That it's
Angelo,
actually
how are
working.
you? Right. Look
Yeah.
at that. Hi, Angelo. Hi, Mark.
Yep.
Hi, Xavier. Right.
All
Seems
right.
like that's nice.
We're
and
figuring this out.
Oh,
Sorry.
apparently, I guess, Mark, we were there and then left, and then now we're back. So cool.
And there is a delay, just so you guys know. Like, if you
Yes.
say something, it probably doesn't show up there for about 20 seconds or something.
I had to mute it.
Oh, is that Cormac's going to probably say something, so, let's have a chance to bleep it.
It was
I get-
preemptive Cormac stuff, yeah, for sure.
But can
We
you
had a-
can you bleep it?
No.
Okay.
But don't tell Cormac that.
Apparently, I have to bleep myself.
Too late.
All right, I think we're good now. I'm going to leave my
So-
hands away. I'm going to take the wheel.
So we
Hey,
were just going through, while you disappeared, we were going through Andrew's drinking a White Russian, Bob's beer in it, I'm beer in it, and Evan, you are
Martini in it looks like.
Gin martini, yeah.
gin.
Gin,
Mark.
at least that's good.
It's the only kind of martini. Yeah, it's a real martini.
Yeah. What kind of beer are you drinking? You two other
Me?
guys.
I
Sure.
am drinking. Go for it.
I was gonna. Well, you were already ready to go. I'll
All right,
shout out to these guys.
I thought you weren't
Right.
going to do any promotion here.
No, hey, send me free beer.
Because we
Send us
know
free
you're
beer.
watching.
Yeah.
Those guys, they love me.
They, like
me
like
out.
Facebook, they know that the live stream's happening, and
That's right. It's good Texas home
So-
brew outside Austin.
Well, funny enough, this is a good old Baltimore brew, even though it is a Guinness. It is the Guinness Blonde, but it looks like they actually rebadged it, and now it's called the Baltimore Blonde, which is awesome. So every time I fly in and out of Baltimore, and as I'm leaving, I drive past the Guinness brewery, and I'm like, hello, beautiful.
I thought maybe if it was the Baltimore brew, it had some crab essence in it.
I was thinking more of like, a syringe, a body part.
That doesn't sound delicious.
Well, the water they brew it with has got all the crab essence in it, right? Because they're just pulling it out of the bay or the river or whatever, right there, right?
If they
Yeah.
pull it out of the harbor, it's going to have some human parts in it.
Whoa. Jeez. Little mob.
Oops, wait, was that supposed to be bleeped?
Yeah, you have to bleep that.
So I just got back from a business trip, 5-hour drive back in from Fayetteville today.
Yeah, you took a
Fayetteville,
picture of a
Arkansas.
barn. You posted a picture of a barn.
Yeah, we got a
Yeah.
cool project happening down there. But so my buddy Marlon Blackwell is.
I was going to say
so,
you visited one of our famed alumni.
Yeah, AI gold medal. So
Yep.
anyway, so here's the thing. So I text him. It's like 5:00 on, I guess it was Tuesday. We're driving in, and I was like, and I was with two of the partners from my office, and I said, so what are the plans for tonight? Because we're gonna arrive. It's gonna be dark. There's no walking the site or anything like that. And they're like, I don't know. Maybe we'll go get a taco or something. I was like, what? I said, let me see if Marlon's available. Thinking, like, this is ridiculous. Like, hey, Marlon, we're gonna be there in an hour. You wanna hang out? So I text him, and he's like, yeah, sure. like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Got nothing
So-
better to do.
So he's like, all right. So we met at this place, and I don't know if anyone in this group other than myself
For tacos?
No, what?
Oh, okay. You said they're going to have tacos. I didn't know Fayetteville was
that's
famous
what
for
one of
tacos.
the partners. No, that's what one of the partners said. That's what the plan was, to get tacos. I go, in Fayetteville. I mean, come on. So anyway, so we met Marlon for a drink and had an interesting conversation. And one of the things we talked about, which might be fun for the four of us to discuss, because I think I was a little bit on an island with my opinion. But
That sounds unusual.
I was right, though. It's totally right.
That also sounds unusual.
Yeah. So we end up having a couple drinks, and then he goes, "What do y'all want to do for dinner? Let's go get dinner." So then we're walking around downtown Fayetteville trying to find a place that's open, and they're either all closed or it's like 8:00, and they're like, "We just closed." We're like, "It's 8:00." So we ended up at this nice kind of tequila Mexican restaurant. It was really good, actually. And I'll just go on the record now for saying I don't like mezcal. Does anyone here like mezcal?
Mezcal?
Mezcal, yeah.
Mezcal is like
I don't like
Mesopotamian Californian. It's like some kind of food mashup.
I don't like to say it, and I don't like to drink it, but
it's an acquired taste.
So the point of then we finished that, and Aaron's like, and we're thinking like we thought, well, it'd be like one drink, and that'll be it. And then he's like, "Hey, who wants to go back to my office?" So we go back to his office, and he's giving us like the super behind the scenes tour. And one of the things that's really cool, and I posted a picture on my stories. He goes, he's got a room that he called the Bear Cave. And when someone in casual conversation just goes, "Well, we got a place up in the Bear Cave, and and this happens and whatever," you don't think anything of it. You're like, okay, Bear Cave, whatever. He's actually got a room that kind of juts out over his lobby, and it's got a stuffed bear in it.
Oh, yeah. I saw it
leering over it.
Did you call it like the welcoming committee or something?
Yeah, it's like a legit bear cave up there. So, no, so the conversation that we had, and I'd like you guys to chime in on this, had to do with not like built work. Like I kind of made the comment that not that there's not value to studio projects or theoretical projects or thought process projects, but if it doesn't count if it doesn't get built. I feel pretty strongly about that. And the reason it came up was I was recently a juror on the AIA National Film Competition.
Yeah.
And one of the films that was up for consideration, and this is the AI had already culled down like from 200 to 40 that we looked at. And there was just three of us. I was the only architect. There was a filmmaker, and there was another young woman. And one of the projects that had scored really well that I was really surprised at was a project that didn't exist. It was like a thought exercise. It's like, this is what we're gonna do, right? So there were renderings and there were little videos, and they say like here's a little video of a grassy field with a deer in it, and they're like, almost like, imagine if you will, this is what's going to happen here. And I was like, I don't think that it should be up for consideration, right? I mean, there's different criteria. It's hard to actually take an idea and make it real. There's like 1,000 more moving parts that get introduced to it, as opposed to when you just go through a thought exercise and you go, this is what we can do, and you put it out there for consumption. So in that context, I was like, if it doesn't get built, it doesn't count.
Well,
and I'm curious to see if you guys disagree with that.
Well, do you think that it still applies when we're talking about, it represented in film? I mean, because, here we're talking, I mean, does the criteria for the film have to be built, philosophical, emotional? I mean, because we are talking about film, and so film is, a representation of architecture that really isn't truly built either, though.
Okay, so I will say this. One of there was three kind of main overarching criteria that we were supposed to use during the judging. One of them was, how successful were they in the architectural execution of their idea?
Okay.
That sounds like you got to build it, right?
Yeah.
And
this was
no one else
the AIA Film Challenge that you're talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that they were really pushing for was that people use the phone in their pocket to make a cinematic experience that was like 5 minutes long or less, or 90 seconds or whatever.
90 seconds this year.
Yeah. So like I could upload a rendering that's 90 seconds long, and it can be anything, or I can actually have to use this tool as the device to capture and tell that story. And you would think then that it also pretty solidly links it to reality.
trying
I
to
can
see
tell you
whether or not
few people. No, go ahead, Cormac.
I was just going to say I'm trying to figure out whether or not the phone he's like waving is the new iPhone 12 Pro or, but no, sorry.
I can tell you that it seemed like few people actually made their videos. Like the videos that made the final cut, few seem to have been recorded on a phone.
Yeah, no, they were all high. They're all like high production. At least in the past, they've always have been too. Like the winners and stuff, right? It's like film crews and everything.
Right. Oh yeah.
Right.
But that's interesting because in the past, like we know when they show the winners at convention and stuff, it's not always projects that are in the top video. So that's an interesting. I wonder if they changed criteria or something so that it would have to be evaluated from an architectural, whatever standpoint, perspective, successfulness.
Well, part of me was thinking it was for the AIA, right? And so you're thinking it's okay. It can't just be some artistic kind of medium that you put out. Like if like anybody could have done what these folks had done, right? The part that I think makes it architecture is like code and budget and construction. All those things mix into it to a reality that then allows us to kind of evaluate it. Also, if it was as successful as the idea would have been, because every idea is great until you go through the process of making it a reality. And things change, things happen. It gets harder.
I agree. I think too that even once you deliver the building, at that point it's still hypothesis that it's going to do the things that you said it was going to do. It's not until the owner occupies that from then on in the timeline when hypothesis is truly tested. And to me, that's where the stories should come out of success or not. I mean, obviously you're going to learn from that and there might be failures there too, but I think that is where you actually tell the stories of how architecture does in fact change.
Well, but let me ask this. So now, you said you were the only architect on the jury and they had filmmakers and things like that on there. And how did they view this? Because they're now viewing it not as an architect. I mean, you're viewing it as, this quantifiable built project type thing. Now they're probably viewing it from a completely different, prospect. So they may not actually agree with and I'm not contending that, they should or shouldn't have put in like a built work, but if they were looking for purely built work stuff, you think that the jury would have been all architects and not filmmakers and things like that.
Yeah, that was not the case. And we did have a moment where so this is part of this pandemic thing too. And I don't know if you guys have gone through this. So I've probably done a half dozen like judging kind of things so far this year. And it was already kind of trending this way, but nowadays it used to be that you would fly in the jurors and they would sit in a room and they would look at the thing that they were judging and they'd have conversation and discourse and they would agree or disagree and they would come to some kind of consensus about it. That hasn't happened on anything this year because of the pandemic and COVID. Everything's being remote. And in this case, what they did is they said, all right, here's your criteria. We had a pre go-to meeting Zoom call kind of thing to kind of talk about what the criteria were. They sent us all the links to everything. We had a scorer sheet, right? So you watched them all and you scored them. They tabulated all of our scores and said, all right, here you go. Here's the winners. And I was like, wait. No, we need to go back through this all on the call together because we're all judging these things with different measuring sticks. And if I can't say that's right or that's wrong, and you don't get to say, I don't understand why that, I was just really surprised. And so when we got on the call and I made my big stink, which I guess that's what I do.
That's kind of that's your job.
I mean, look, I'm a nice guy. I like to think I'm a nice guy, but man, I will draw a line in the sand.
There's one.
Yeah. And so we talked about it and everybody acquiesced except for one person. Right. And they all said, okay, if you want to rescore it based on the stink Borson's making, then we'll do that. Everyone's like, okay, let's do that. And I went, no. Because I don't really want to be that guy. I didn't want to bully this one person into agreeing with me. If I couldn't just make my case and get everybody on board, then I would walk away. So that's what I did. I walked away from it. And so it didn't change. But it didn't sit right with me. Still doesn't.
Seems
but I think it's a different conversation.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Cormac. Sorry. No, you're good. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, it seems kind of weird that, I mean, we frame all of these competitions that the AIA, has for the design awards and things like that, where it is each juror basically kind of like in a vacuum, they will do their review, do their scorecard, and then kind of set it in tally and basically kind of like figure out which cream rose to the top, but then let's talk about it a little bit more and have that conversation. So it's kind of weird to not have that, that ability to kind of like talk through what is, why did I think that this was better than this? I've been on so many juries that they'll say, oh, Corinth, what the hell were you thinking about? I mean, why did you pick that one and score that one so high when all of us basically scored it once?
Well,
and your response is, I don't know. I have bad taste. Is that what it is?
I was going to say, I was more going to say because y'all suck.
Oh yeah, that's fine, right?
I mean, Andrew, how many times have we gone to a convention, either state or national? We're sitting by each other, and we watch the keynote speaker, and we walk out, and I turn and I go, they were amazing, and you go, they sucked, or I go, they sucked, and you're like, well, no, they were great, and we talk about it, and it turns out just that conversation, like you can just kind of pivot on one thing, and maybe you just didn't understand it, or maybe you didn't think of it, or you didn't consider it in the way that someone else did, and everything spins off in a different direction. That's happened a bunch of times when just having a conversation, you come out of it with one set of ideas, and somebody goes, yeah, but what about this? And then you go, oh, I didn't think of it that way. And then everything starts to have a different kind of light on it. And I think that if we're going to do these juried panels, you have to have the conversation between all the judges. You can't just give them a tabulation sheet and just score it and go, here's the tally.
Yeah, no, I honestly feel like they should be doing so much more with these rather than just trying to kind of push them through the system. It really does feel like on many levels that we're just trying to push this stuff through and tabulate things, and then there isn't kind of that vibrant discussion that happens during an actual review happening.
Yeah. So,
yeah, I think that's interesting because I mean I've sat on some of the TXA sat in on the reviews for the state level design awards, and that's like the best part of it, right? They all pre-score, but when they show up, the conversation that they have about, like you're saying, why did you guys give this one a 1 when I gave it a 5, and you're able to like you say pivot and make those conversations. That's really what needs to happen. The scorecard in isolation kind of is to me a first step, right? Like that's the most basis level of jurying something, right?
Yeah.
But to go back to your point. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, because I'll just say that on my very first, and it was not a statewide, but it was one of the smaller jurisdictional AIA design awards. Actually, because I'd never done it before, I learned a lot. I actually learned to be, a little less or a little more critical than, just, I mean, they really did try. And then, so, it really, and it was a lot nicer that first jury. And then I sat and I just basically listened to everybody's and how very critical they were about it and what they were specifically looking for, which I really liked. And so, I mean, I learned a whole heck of a lot from, just that first jury, more so as the jurors judging me about how I judge somebody else.
Yeah.
And it was,
but back to your original
partner, Bob.
Yeah, fun.
Back to your original question though, about if it doesn't get built, it doesn't count. I agree with that point. Like, because to me, that's it. Otherwise, it's this conversation about paper architecture. Not that it doesn't have value, but there's a whole nother set of struggles and effort and all these other sort of things that have to happen in order for a work to actually get realized. And I mean, like you said, Evan, even once you finish the drawings and hand it over, it's still hypothesis, right? It's still not a real sort of project, because there's so many things that happen in construction, right? Even that change your ideas and change the way the project comes together. So, I think you and I have had that conversation before about if it doesn't get built, it doesn't count. But
Yeah.
Not that paper architecture doesn't push the profession forward in some way,
Not that
but
it doesn't have its own values. Yeah.
yeah,
Right,
but
but it's a different
That's the
different
caveat
conversation.
always.
yeah.
Yeah.
You always have to put that caveat on there. It has value, but it's
Right.
different measuring criteria to it.
Yeah.
But it,
So-
Yeah, you can't put it in the same boat as built work. Like that's
Right,
just not.
right.
I think when you say it, if it doesn't get built, it doesn't count. You are talking about something specific. You're not saying that this other stuff doesn't count, right? It's just that what you're saying is in this particular type of when you're talking about a national award and you're talking about AIA architecture and you're talking about filming it with this device, and you're putting another level of criteria on that is saying that you're probably supposed to be talking about something that's real.
Right.
Well, I would even
Maybe.
go so far as I would extend it out a little bit more beyond that. Like, let's say
Yeah, me
that I
too.
design a house, and the client pays me, and we do drawings. We go through SD, we go through design development, we go through construction documents, and the economy bottoms out, and the client goes, "Okay, wait, I can't pull the trigger on that." Goes in the drawer. Next thing you know, they've just moved on to something else. Right?
Yeah.
That project
Does that happen?
it isn't architecture. It doesn't exist because it didn't get built. Like it's like running 100 meters and stopping at 80 and going, I ran that race. Awesome. That was amazing. You didn't go 100. You didn't go 100 yards. Like you didn't finish. You didn't finish it. So you don't.
Yeah.
You're just like the horse that doesn't complete a race. You're a scratch. Did not complete whatever it is.
I got a set of documents from Sam Mockbee, and it's this absolutely beautiful house that would have been in Michigan, and never got built. But it's just this amazing thing. But is it architecture? Sadly, no. It's beautiful lines on a paper, beautifully organized, and learned a lot about documentation from it. But yeah,
It's a beautiful idea. It's a beautiful concept, right? But they're all just concepts without execution, right? I mean,
right.
to me, I put that stuff in the same sort of category almost as video game quote unquote architecture. Or what, I mean, it's not real. That's not architecture. It's not something that gets built, even though they're making all kinds of environments and doing all kinds of things like that. It's not something that's actually has to go through this process of responding to gravity and the economy and all those sort of basic things, right? These are discussions I have in my academic world all the time, but I am always, again, probably on the wrong side of that conversation, it seems like. But
Yeah.
I still agree with you.
Although funny story is I had a guy that I went to architecture school with who is a video game designer for like Metroid. It's was one of the video games that he designed, and whether or not he's building real architecture or not, he's making a boat ton more bank than we do.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
I mean, I even say like set design and stuff is really cool, right? Like,
oh yeah.
movie set design, but that's still not. I mean, it's not architecture, right? I mean, it's facade architecture or something, right? I mean, but it's not. It's still not architecture. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that was our dinner conversation with Marlon.
And you were on the wrong side of that one with Marlon and your other two partners,
I got
or
him
just
there.
about the film part.
I got him there.
Did
You like how
sway
that was
from-
not an answer?
Wow.
No, there was still, eventually they all kind of agreed, but they had to make sure that the right kind of descriptors and caveats were in
Well,
place
that was
before
to say was that they probably loaded it up with caveats.
Yeah, it only needs like 2 or 3 big ones, but yeah,
Drinks
because there's
to agree with you.
no. So
Yeah, that doesn't
Um,
work.
here, I got something else for you. I asked Evan, I go, do we have like an agenda? Do we have anything we want to cover? And it's just like, this is free form.
Are happy hours supposed to have agendas? Man, that would
I
suck.
was going to say,
Well-
how many times did you like, Andrew, you're taking meeting minutes, right?
Yeah, I am. But at the same time, I'm not really broadcasting my happy hours to people
Are you
for
using
their
the template?
entertainment.
Are you
I mean, that
using
comes
the
much
standard
later in the
template?
night.
Yeah, I hope you're using the standard template for those meeting minutes. Jeez.
Yeah.
I'm doing
Hey.
Robert's rules though. It's all.
Hey, just so you know, I did put it out there that if anybody wanted to ask questions, we need to pay attention because that's kind of the point. We have guests, so
Absolutely.
so we did have a.
There is a question pop up already.
Yeah,
I was going to say I like this one too.
Spaces podcasts are like, hey, are we getting our own way by limiting what we define as architecture?
Or are we getting in our own way?
Yeah.
Yes and
Isn't that
no.
what I said?
I don't know. I would say yes and no. I think it just depends.
Yeah, honestly, I
don't
don't know how to answer that question because I'm not sure that I understand it. Like,
Well, I think the question is like, are we sort of limiting ourselves in what we're able to do because of the way that we define architecture as only something that's built? But to me, that is what architecture is, but that doesn't limit our influence. That just limits at least to me, my definition of architecture, but not the things that we can influence and impact. I think that goes well beyond architecture as an architect, right? Like I can have input and impact, hopefully, on other things, but yeah, I mean, I could see that it could be limiting, but to me, that's not the definition of architecture as far as built architecture versus, theoretical and speculative and all those sorts of things. That's different, right?
but I think that's the way it's phrased. It says, are we getting in our own way by limiting what we define as architecture? So that assumes that there's a summation. We've already defined that what it is, and it is our behavior getting in the way by how we change what's north of the summation to get to the answer. Does that make sense? If we say the answer is 5, and if we say, like, now we're limited to whatever we can put, 1 + 1 + 1 + 2 is 5, right? We get the same answer, but we can go different routes to get there, right? That's the thing that we would be limiting ourselves on. But no matter how you do it, you're still getting a 5, right? Because other words, it's a whatever my wife would have the word for it.
But then
1
the
+
question
1 doesn't equal 5.
Then the question is what constitutes architecture of that 5? I mean, because you could say that this question could easily be: is it capital A architecture, or is it anything that an architect has influence on its design and construction, whether it's the most amazing thing in the world, or it's just something that has been designed by an architect. Because look
at the projects that from the Pritzker, right? I mean, if you look at a lot of the previous Pritzker winners, it is capital A architecture. But if you look at Alejandro Arnueva, is that how you say it? His work is, I wouldn't call that capital A architecture, but it has a social impact that is totally architectural, right? But I wouldn't define that as capital A architecture from a pure design standpoint. So,
but see, that's the thing is that that's, and it could be that it's that this is that kind of like open-ended question where you say that it's design-wise capital A architecture, but it's not really capital A architecture design-wise, but it has this great social impact. Well, you can contend that architecture doesn't necessarily have to be high design to have a greater impact. And in fact, some of the things that are defined as capital A architecture have less of a cultural or social impact than the things that actually are lesser of a design.
Yeah, I think looking back at the Spaces podcast question, are we getting in our own way? I kind of feel like architects have to actually define this, and we have to define what the value of architecture is in the world. Yeah. And I think a reason why we feel like we might be getting in our own way is because there's definitely issues around architects getting hired to do architecture versus lots of other people getting hired to make buildings, right? And it's because we haven't necessarily taken a stand and said, this is how architecture adds value to society, rather than just saying all buildings are equal, man. Like yours is as good as this one. I don't think that's. I think that's probably one of our problem. Cormac's on number 2.
That's number 3. Well, that's kind of what I would say, Evan. That's what my point was. So we either have to define the end, and then that kind of tells us here's the bubble at which we can exist in that leads us to whatever we've defined it as, or you change how we define it, and then
Yeah.
it can still be whatever. Then it can be whatever you want.
It can be. And I think one of the issues that we've seen show up time and time again is because we haven't necessarily put out there exactly what it is, and that can be within a range, that so many other people have impeded into that space and just claimed to create architecture when it isn't, right? And so now there's all this ambiguity around it.
But that's also because as a group we can't agree on what that is.
True.
I mean, we can't. I mean, even that's even inherent in that question, right? Like, we limit ourselves, but like the four of us probably all have a different definition of what architecture is, right? And then multiply that times the whatever 88,000 of us that there are in the U.S. and then how many ever hundreds of thousands there are in the world. The definition of it is almost impossible, right? But I mean, I think in the conversation that we were having, my definition was about a specific portion or part of architecture, right? But because there's architectural design, there's architecture theory, there's architectural criticism, there's all kinds of veins through that, right? That I think don't limit us and don't have a definition per se that relates to exactly what our previous conversation was about, in a way.
So,
to
Bob,
me anyway.
If architecture is whatever we define it, does it have to be built?
Well, I'm not saying that that's my definition. It's not mine. I think first off, I don't think architecture is art. I think it's artistic. And I think for it to count, like for us to be able to measure and look at the standards by which, we measure like everything else in the world, it has to exist. Like it has to have all the things to it that were north of the summation, south of the summation. Like when you say, I put in I put in program, I put in budget, I put in time, I get all these consultants that all coordinate, a contractor builds it, it all shows up. People use it. And that's how you measure whether or not it worked and it did what it's supposed to do. And, because otherwise, I mean, we could really make this sticky wicket if we try to go too far down this. But I think that
let's do it.
What,
Andrew is all in.
So let me I'm gonna throw something else at you because it's kind of like a point one that goes to this. It's a little funny horn toot for me for a moment, but it's germane. So I don't know if you guys saw this. I'm gonna pull the curtain back on something here, and we can have a laugh at what it means. All right? Did you guys see this?
No.
Look.
Yes, I saw it on LinkedIn. Did you they mailed you something?
Yes, they mailed me something. So I got called out as being one of the top voices in design on all of LinkedIn, right? And they emailed me and they said, here you go. It's amazing. Prepare for the onslaught. And I was like, wow, that seems like it's kind of a big deal. So the onslaught, which has occurred in the last 2 days, none of them are architects. They're all UX, UI people, like people that aren't even like architects the way we think of architects.
Ooh, yeah.
It's like they didn't even bother to read. They saw architect and they're like, I'm in. I follow this guy. And I look at it and I go, UX, UI, no, not following you, not interested.
There's a lot of architects moving into that space, though, or a lot of students, and that's definitely where a lot of people are headed. So there is a kind of an integration there for sure.
This is not that though. This is not alternative career path.
Okay,
people looking to connect. This is, and there's a lot of smart people, but it's one of those things that I always kind of get a bit of a chuckle about when we talk about like what we do and how do people understand or perceive the value in what we do. And just this LinkedIn thing shows that people they don't know, they're not paying attention. Yeah. I say, I'm an architect. They're like, oh, so
yeah. I mean, I think that this speaks right to what I was speaking about because so many other people have kind of glommed on to the architectural sphere of things, right? That, I mean, we see it in titles, right, all over the place with software development and, software architects and this and that, IT architects and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. That because we haven't really defined it well, or at least talked about the value chain and the outcomes, that there is tons of confusion around this.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know. It's for You said something, and it's also Joshua Prince Ramu said the same thing once, and it has to do with as we extricate ourselves from a bigger and bigger piece of the pie, and we focus more and more on the specificity of a certain act within the whole, how we're marginalizing ourselves to a certain extent, and I think that we're reaping the fruit of that process now. To be honest with you,
is that rotten fruit?
For some, I think it is.
It's that mezcal fruit thing or whatever that you were talking about earlier, that California mezcal, whatever. Yes, I'm answering the question in the chat, if that's what you're asking. I'm typing now.
Do you guys think then that, I mean, okay, so to me, what your statement that you just made, Bob, really kind of points towards this idea of the master builder. And do you think that's even possible anymore?
No, I don't.
No.
So if you take that position from, if we're talking about the definition of architecture, do you feel like architects then are a valuable piece of a larger puzzle, and we should definitely try to like get everything we can out of making an impact in that one piece that we have such an influence over? Or because I see a lot of architects still talking about that idea of the master builder and wanting to become that again.
Will never.
That's impossible.
Exactly.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
I feel like that too.
There is a certain sphere where that's possible, and I think it's in like the high end residential market.
And that would be it.
That would be it, though, because
but
I will
as
tell
long
you
as
that.
they're,
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, as long as they're like the developer, they're the ones who are funding it. Because I mean, there's still a whole criteria of constraints that they have to conform to. But I would agree with you that is probably the closest that they'll get.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I mean. It's like, so for my office, we've been chatting a lot about how we migrate our employees through. We're trying to design a new kind of workflow so that we can create better architects on the outside. Because what happens is, so for instance, I sit in pod 3, and that is the designer's pod, and I sit in the 5 hole, so that suggests that I'm one of the leaders of the design group. The problem, and I said, we need to blow this up. I have a huge problem with the idea of what this is. And everybody looked at it like, what are you doing? Like, Portion, you just got here. And I went, well, let's say that I'm this young woman over here, and she has aspirations for being a designer, but she gets put in this pod over here because there's no room in pod 3 for her. And all of a sudden she thinks, well, clearly they don't think of me as a designer. And so we're like installing this process, this kind of how I imagine myself. And I'm more a project architect route or a project manager route. I'm not the designer route because they didn't put me in with the designers. Right. And I go, we need to like blur the line between being an architect. And so I started looking at it and saying, when I was in a smaller firm and we did light commercial, small commercial, 20,000 square feet and less, but in residential work, I would design it, I would draw it, I would detail it, I would do the construction administration. You would do it all. And so I have the ability to talk to clients. I have the ability to talk to contractors. I have the ability to process pay applications. And I have the ability to design window details. And in some of the larger firms, the work is kind of siloed to a certain extent sometimes that you don't develop that person in the same kind of inch deep, mile wide kind of process that you get when you have to do everything. And so we're trying to figure out how we can, like, even if it's only a half mile wide and 2 inches deep, maybe like that's better than the 1 inch wide and mile deep. That's what I think we ought to try to get away from. And that speaks back to the idea of the master builder, the master architect, someone who has enough knowledge to kind of be able to cover the entire start to finish process of getting a building built.
I can tell you how we did that in our office, but I think before we go into that, I would love to hear. So it sounds to me like you guys are actually in your physical space right now.
We are. We're at 50-50.
Okay.
So
because doesn't that have everything to do with this? I mean, you're actually talking about seats in pods, whereas like our firm, 300 and plus people, nobody's in the office. And so now there's no such thing as like a seating chart, right? So So does that affect how your career path could play out because there's no limit to a pod anymore?
Yeah, I think it's possible, but
is It's harder too.
Well, what you're bringing up actually introduces a whole lot of other questions. So we were 80 people in the Dallas office is how big we were. And we kind of just geographically we have pods, whether or not you assign like a role to like pod 1 is CA and pod 2 is PM and whatever. Even if you strip those away, geographically you're creating subgroups within the whole just by how people sit, right? That's a hard thing to get away from. And the thing that I think happens now that we've gone to this work from home situation. So we worked from home for a couple months. We thought that the culture of the firm was kind of eroding a little bit because we weren't in the office. We're all masters of Zoom calls and go-to meetings and being able to use our mouse to draw on a screen. And we've all got that figured out. And to a large extent, it's not bothering some people. Some people are they're loving this. Like they go, this is the greatest thing that ever happened to them. Mm-hmm. But there's also this cut of the office that are the quiet people.
Yeah.
And they're getting lost, right? And they're losing an identity that is our firm. They're being distilled down into just them, right? And we don't think that that's good for their long-term development. So we feel really strongly that we need to try to get people back in the office in some capacity. I do think that the future of almost every profession now that we've gone from this work from home situation, like my wife, she works at corporate for Southwest Airlines. And they know that for recruiting talent, that there's going to be an expectation that working from home part of the time is expected. Like I'm not going to be expected to come into the office 100% of the time because that's just ridiculous. So now they're going through the process of figuring out how they can actually put that into effect.
Yeah.
Which I think is interesting. And my office is trying to figure out how not to do that. We're actually in the middle of reconfiguring everything so we can socially distance, have people all not face each other, but all face like one way. Mm-hmm. So we can get more people in the office to try to start rebuilding that kind of collaboration and that kind of sense of culture.
Yeah.
So
before all this happened, we designed a series of pods in our office, and pods in our office are much different than like desks, right? So a pod is a higher density of people, and those people work on one project together day to day. And you've got a PA and a PM and a designer two, and whoever you need, however big that project is, they work together through the entire length of the project. So when you're talking about developing somebody as an architect, they're going to do that on this project from beginning to end so that there's consistency. And we really viewed these seats as way more nomadic in that sense, where like they don't that is their desk for this project, and they don't have an assigned desk otherwise. So as a new project comes along, after they finish that one, they'll move. And so you don't have as much crap at your desk in the office because you're going to move at some point. Or you know what I mean, but that way that's how we were looking at actually developing people to become architects, was by giving them that exposure to everything that a PM does and everything that a PA does on a day-to-day basis, and they are overhearing all of it, even if they're not actually doing that work, and it really helps develop them.
Because we do the same thing, and we actually go one step further. And I don't know if you guys do this or not, but we also have the PIC, as part of the whole like pod assembly as well, because then you get to actually see from like recent graduate all the way to a partner, and you see every bit of how their role is within the project. And so, you can have one person, discussing, so, okay, well, Bob, you're the principal, and, you're talking about contracts, you're talking about business development, you're talking about things that may not necessarily talk about that particular project, but they're, you're in proximity to other people, so you're able to influence, or at least they're understanding that, okay, well, when I get to, Bob's, age, then I will be able to do that. And I didn't mean age, I meant experience.
Master of the universe.
That's that right there.
No, wait, hold on. So Cormac, here's the thing. Evan and Cormac, I have to get this in. This has to do with you guys work for really, really large firms, right? And your firms primarily do similar project types. The firm I work in, we have like 6 market sectors we work in. We would never structure people by teams really, because people be moving every 10 days. I mean, we don't have we have some projects that go on for 2 years, but I'm working on 12 jobs right now. There's no way I could sit with the team of those 12 jobs. It's just so we're putting our pods together. So some representative from each one of those groups that you mentioned is in that group, but it might not be the same project. So sorry, Andrew, I just want to get that in before we
No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
No, it's fine. I don't even know what I was going to say now.
It's
No,
only been
actually, I
like
do.
30
I actually
minutes.
do. But you've diverted the conversation. But what I was going to say before about the thing that Cormac and Evan was talking about, and this is always was a pet peeve in my office, is the things that you're talking about is why I did not let anyone wear headphones in my office.
Yeah, exactly.
So that they could hear what was happening. And I said, you just can't do it. I don't care if you're cranking on something anyway, no headphones, because you learn just as much secondhand. You know, you get cancer from secondhand smoke just as much as you do from firsthand smoke. So you hear this, you can hear things and increase your knowledge level by just being aware of what's happening around you.
Well, I got to point that way because that's where Evan's at. And so, but I mean, Evan and I have talked about it a lot when we, when we talk about like, it's that, so like if I'm PMing a project and, I might be stuck on something where I hear another PM or another PA talking about something that they're working on, like, oh, I need to go talk to him because I'm working on a very similar issue. I mean, the day of being able to like walk out, through a studio and look down at your drawing board and see the entire thing that you're working on right in front of you has, been gone before most of us really got into the profession. And so we don't really ever know what somebody else is, working on until we actually hear or see them doing it. And so that's why, Andrew, it's a really good thing that you say that, banning or at least just limiting, headphone use. I mean, sometimes, when you're just grinding something out, sure, whatever. But for the most part, you really do actually want people to hear what is going on. Because a lot of times, mentoring by osmosis is just as valuable as, it's just, sometimes a young person might be overhearing you talk about something that's like, oh, maybe that's not how I should do it.
I like this secondhand smoke analogy. It's good.
I do too. I like it.
Even though it's absolutely false. If you don't get cancer from firsthand smoke the same way you do from secondhand smoke. But anyway, Cormac, what you're suggesting is that roles are better to be grouped together. Because if I'm a PM in training, I'd learn way more about becoming a good PM by sitting around other PMs, not by sitting by the entire silo of the people that are in the food chain for the delivery
I'm
process.
conflicted about this too. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
so
but,
I go.
But see, one of the
I don't know.
Well, one of the things that I do like though is that if you're have a bunch of like say junior PAs and a senior PA and your PM and all this other stuff in kind of a more traditional sense of the role, but you have them all grouped together, there's a variety of different things you can see there. Not only can you see like, okay, the PM is struggling with doing this something, maybe I can go and help him out on that, or you can actually start to see, and this is one of the things that I like about it, is you can actually start to see the capabilities of other people that normally you wouldn't actually see. So if I'm sitting next to some junior staff and I can see that they're like really killing it on they're sharp on designing and detailing, and they have a really good grasp on like mechanical layouts and I'm sitting next to other PMs, I'm never going to know that. But being able to sit next to them and really kind of see what they can do and find out a way of that I could push them a little bit more to learn a little bit more and to grow a little bit more, I like that opportunity to be able to be around like everybody. Plus also 9 times out of 10 I'm going to be like, the hell is Revit doing? Can somebody help me? Anybody help me? So I mean, I like the opportunity, because it's that, it's mentoring up and down. It's just like, I've got some knowledge that I have, but they've got knowledge that I don't have, and I want to share that with them.
Yeah, my conflict comes in where you talk about like, let's say you really want to be known for something like design, right? Rather than, I don't know, whatever else. It doesn't matter. But
are you talking about as an individual or as a firm?
As a firm. So then it really does make sense, I think, to have like a design pod where they live and breathe and ooze design all the time, right? Because you're constantly challenging each other on that. And I think that in a larger firm, again, coming from that perspective, where you do kind of plug people in depending on, trying to gain experience and breadth for becoming architects, that is a lot harder. And I think there's value in both, and it's hard to kind of navigate that, I think. So I could definitely see the value in both directions. It's kind of like you want to do the breadth first, and then focus, because then you're all on the same team, but you're doing what you do best together, and you're constantly challenging each other. But we all know that nobody sticks around.
But the thing about doing something like that, though, as far as grouping by task, I guess, or position, is I feel like that you lose that opportunity to really connect all of the parts together, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, granted, I guess it depends on what age you are at and what stage you are in your career, but even in your, the first 10 to 15 years of your career, probably you still need to be learning how things go together and how all that stuff operates to make that whole thing become, a built work or all of that, right?
I want to respond. I think Andrew's right, and it brings up a really interesting kind of.
Wait, what?
I know.
Wait,
it doesn't happen often. Hold on,
we're recording.
I was like, wait.
It's 7:16 my time. 19. So anyway, but the thing is so we have a guy in our office named Jason Hansen, and he's really smart. He's really talented.
Name drop.
Guys, he'll never listen to this.
I don't see him in the stuff. Yeah,
he's not there. But so he and I, he's been at the firm for like 16, 17, 18 years, long time. And he's got a lot of institutional knowledge. And he is, so the way the pods are currently set up is they're in clumps of 10, and there's the main hallway, and we kind of go 1 hole, 2 hole, 3 hole, 4 hole, 5 hole, right? So he sits in one 5 hole and I sit in the other 5 hole. And he is like big firm created, right? So he actually went through the whole, like, I know how to be a PA, I know how to be a PM, I know how to document the building, I can design it. He can do all of it. And so when I make the argument that we need to expose people to more things so we can build capital A architects, like people that are capable of doing it all, he goes, that's how I did it. And so he was really on board with this. The problem we run into, where Jason is concerned sometimes, and this is not a criticism of him, is that I tell him all the time, you need to stop doing what you're doing. We don't need one super Jason. I need the super Jason to make 10 more little Jasons.
Yeah.
Right. So at a certain point, as you grow up this chain, you take them out of the silo, and then they float, and they're like, my job is now to make more miniature versions of me. I need to take my institutional knowledge and train everybody up. And I go, if you don't do that, then you get hit by a bus.
Yeah.
No,
win the lottery.
In many ways. Yeah. So you can actually make an argument for team seating. You can do it by task seating, and you can do it by like skill set seating. Like I got a designer, I got a young person, I got a PA, a PM.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is, over the next year and a half, our lease in our office is up in a year and a half. So we're actually going to do like 3 little versions of blowing up how everyone seats to see how it works best. So for the last year and change that I've been there, it's been kind of the pod, like pod 3 is the design pod, pod 5 and 6, those are the interior designers, that kind of thing. So we're going to look at blowing that up, and we're going to go more to, hey, I want a CA and a production and a senior designer and a junior designer and a PA and a PM. They're all going to group together so you can kind of figure out, because the other way it works in our office is you come in, you kind of get assigned like you're a designer, you're a project architect in training kind of thing. And they go through that process for a while, and then we go to them and say, what do you want to do? Like, we're here to support your dreams. So do you want to be a designer? And they go, I don't know. Like, they haven't been exposed to it. And that's why I was like, you need to get them seated around all these different people so they can at least go. It's kind of like how doctors do it. They go on rotation. And how do they know if they want to be an obstetrician or if they want to be an ENT, or, they go and do rotations on these things. So that's the direction we've decided to take it.
And at the end of the day, I mean, ultimately what we're all talking about is improving the institutional knowledge of, the people who are going to be replacing us.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'm irreplaceable, Cormac. So,
Well, that's not what I was told.
no. It's in a completely different manner. It's not. It's not. Doesn't have anything to do with my talent or skills, right? Those are totally replaceable. It's everything else, right?
So let me ask you this. So, with that, kind of like just, the growth of education and experience and that experience sharing. One of the things that, we've talked about struggling with, especially in the work from home environment, is mentoring. And, how are we able to, talk to, some of the younger staff that might be working with us, and how do you engage them in a work from home environment to be able to pass on that knowledge? I mean, because like right now, I mean, most of the time people are sent away with tasks. And so they're working on those tasks. And, even through Zoom, you don't really fully get the understanding of whether or not they actually know what they're taught, know what they've been assigned or whatever, and everything else. But, that's not even the point of, I guess, my question. The point of my question is, how are you guys, approaching mentoring in a work from home environment?
Well, I can tell you, we don't have anything organized. I do what Bob Borson does, which is
Who's that?
I reach out to people constantly.
Yeah,
and just
me too.
check in on them. How are they doing? What are you working on? Show me what you're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it's not structured. And I'll talk to other people in the office.
You just dad them.
And they'll say, I should be doing more of that. Like Andrew Bennett, a good friend of mine. He's one of the owners of the firm and a partner. And he'll readily concede that, like, he goes, I should be doing more of that. But I'd probably say I maybe target 20 minutes every day just to go talk to somebody and say, what are you doing? What are you working on? How's it going? Do you need anything? Is there anything that, like, the office can provide support to you? Like, are there opportunities that you feel like you're missing out on? Just so that they feel that they have someone who's listening, who's in the room where those conversations are held, which currently doesn't include them.
Right.
That's a big part of it. And I think that mentorship is one of these things that I think as soon as you try to organize it or structure it, it fails miserably.
Well, yeah.
If it doesn't happen organically, it doesn't work.
I agree. Yeah. And I think it's best if it's seeked out by the person looking for it rather than the other way around, right? Forcing somebody to be my mentee, for instance, rather than looking for a mentor. Those are two completely different point of views to come from.
Well, or forcing someone to be a mentor, right? Like, we're going to assign you and you're going to find whatever, right?
Yeah. Because there's certainly not natural.
No, go ahead, Cormac. I'm sorry.
I was going to say they're certainly not natural, mentors. I mean, because, a lot of times somebody may be really smart at the job that they do, but they may not be very good at passing that knowledge down to somebody else. And so you're right, Andrew. I mean, really couldn't, one of the interesting things, Bob, that I actually do is, not only like the check-in thing, but a lot of times what we'll end up doing is we'll actually do like a live, like, red line session where, say, okay, so I've assigned Andrew, to do all of these section details, and, he'll like work through a bunch of them. And then rather than me, like redlining them in a bubble and then handing them off to Andrew to go, do them, I'll actually redline them in real time with Andrew. So he can kind of understand that, okay, you got a good core of things, but, I want you to understand, like, where's the primary, weather barrier line and all of these other things. And just, like, really talk about why you're doing actually what you're doing. And because anybody can draw something. I mean, there's enough Google searches out there of, like, drawing stuff or giving you an example, but understanding the why you're actually doing it is, I think, probably the most critical part of mentoring.
Well, that's the whole, what time is it? And let me tell you how to build a clock as opposed to give you the answer. Right. I mean, sometimes people are like, just tell me the effing answer, and depending on the size of the firm, like, I know at my last office, when my name was on the door, we didn't have the bandwidth for that type of handling. So if you weren't a heat-seeking type A problem solver type person, you would die. You would hate it. It's like you felt like the bright lights were on you too much. And we saw a couple of people just it ruined them. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't mean that because everyone else is so amazing, but it eats away at people in a way that's really, really unhealthy. Um, I I think that I think it's really valuable to do exactly what you're talking about, Cormac, because I live and die by that process,
Yeah.
and actually that's really my sketching skills, for better for worse, however they are. It has evolved because that's how I
Oh yeah,
talk
yeah,
with
yeah.
people in my office. That's it. I don't ever sit down and do beautiful drawings or whatever. I
Communication.
sit down and I spread it out and I go, okay, what about this? And it becomes that's how I answer questions. And my sketches reflect that as a process as
Yeah,
opposed
yeah.
to like they're kind of problem. Michael Malone said once, he described it very well. He said, um, my sketches create not me, him. He goes, my sketches create problems, your sketches solve problems. And I
Well,
thought
I mean,
that was an interesting way
that's
to put it.
great. Oh yeah, yeah. Because I mean, that's totally like I'll have whatever scrap piece of paper, post-it note, any like sketchbook that I have around, and I'll have like piles of them, and it'll basically be like this series of conversations, that have evolved into like a bunch of like little sketches that I have. Because I'll sit there and I'll talk about it, just like, hey, can you tell me about this? I'm like, okay, well here, and I'll grab a piece of paper and we'll sit down together and kind of like draw through those things because I actually want them to kind of understand and really, because like they're going to go run back to the computer and like, draft it up that way. But, to kind of like we always talk about how very deliberate the lines are that we create, when we're drawing something by hand, because we have to have that understanding of, okay, when I draw this line and this line and this line, they actually mean something. And a lot of times that gets lost in the computer. And so basically sitting down and like tracing out your thought process through by tracing it out on a piece of paper. I mean, I couldn't live. Me personally, I couldn't live without that.
Yeah.
I really love how you said that, Bob, because I think like those are both incredibly important pieces to the process, right? Because one thing that I've heard from a particular structural engineer he said, what I love about architects is that they come up with really interesting problems, right? And I think that to me, again, I kind of brings us back to where we were talking about like what is architecture, right? It's so interesting to me that part of this is problem creating and part of this is problem solving, right? I think a lot of times when we go through the process, we create a lot more problems than we ever kind of set out to, right? Like that's never something that a client would see as part of the process, but it is an incredibly important part of it.
I think it's our most important skill set is to create those problems because ideally we're coming up with solutions to problems that nobody knew existed.
Yeah.
So if you don't create them, if you don't think of them, I always think that one of the best skill sets architects have is they're really good at asking questions. And it might even just be internal to yourself.
Yeah.
But if you can't ask the question or put yourself in a position to go, why is this the way it is? Or if I extrapolate this out, something's going to happen 20 steps downstream of where I'm at right now. That's going to be a problem. Sounds like somebody's printer going off.
There's construction at Cormac's house or something.
Is it really?
I was gonna say, I bet
Probably
you
me
guys have
typing.
something like this. You guys?
No,
probably
it was
have
something
like
weird.
this. So
yeah, I would say that. Yeah, I think really that idea of creating problems is actually the first part of what we do, right? And then later on is when we start trying to solve those problems that we created for ourselves in a way, right?
Yeah.
And some people are better at it than others on either end of the spectrum, right? But I would say all of my sketches that I do, because I'm not a good sketcher, they're all about solving problems. Like I rarely sketch to create problems or whatever. It's all about, wait, how am I going to make this work?
Right.
And how am I going to get it to happen?
My favorite sketches that I go back and kind of look through, because I've got a big stack of them here of stuff that I've saved over the years, or go back through my sketchbooks, are the ones where I'm kind of exploring. And to me, it's not solving problems. It's just thinking through the process. And it's amazing how much you learn by doing that about the project that you're working on. Right. And so you're coming up with ideas and like, no, that's not quite right. And then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then you do it again. And through that process of kind of discovering the problems and the answers, and it's really blurry between those two things. I feel like that's something that most people never are open. They just don't see that happening. And to me, that is part of the value of working with an architect. That is really hard for us to communicate to other people because they just don't see that happen right in front of them.
Yeah. I was going to ask you guys, because I bet at least I wouldn't be surprised if we all had it. I was thinking about how we record information, how we think through it. And, I go through a lot of trace paper, and none of it, it's sacred. I mean, I'll draw it and I rip it off, and almost just like the act of ripping it is the trajectory that it disappears from my table. Then eventually just people will take it and they'll fold it up and bring it back to the desk because it's a record of a conversation. And I was sitting there thinking, so I use a lot of these sketchbooks, right? These are just the cheap paper ones.
Yeah.
And so the thing I thought was funny is, to give you an idea, right? See how that's blank? Right?
Yeah.
This was yesterday's thought process, right? And I go, look at the kind of, I don't know if you can see it. Look at the stuff that shows up on the page.
Yeah.
I can't. It's like looking at your hair in a mirror. I can't do it. But it's like, as we're writing notes, there's like sketches show up, because it's, in certain ways, it's a lot easier for me to do a little doodle, a little sketch, to write out what that sketch might look like in some way.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's in this book as opposed to a piece of trace paper is because it's a note. It's not actually, this is a problem. I mean, I'm sketching out something to articulate, something that I think is an issue or something that needs further consideration. Yeah. It's not a solution. And that's what trace paper is for me.
Yeah, I agree. It is for me too. It's funny that you have this book, because to me, like, being in the office, it's trace, but at home it's this book. And because I'm working from home, it ends up in here. When I was in the office, it was a roll of trace. And like you said, it's on your desk and then it's gone. And then it's on your desk and then it's gone. And it's really transient. And sometimes those get kept and they get scanned. But most of the time it's just processed and it goes in the trash.
It's funny. Let me ask you guys. No, go ahead.
Wait. I was just going to say,
trying to talk. Yeah.
I'm used to it. That's fine.
Whatever.
There's a question in the chat that we might get around to at some point. That's really what I was getting at. But I didn't mean to stop. But some of my favorite sketches that I've ever had are on trace, right? Mm-hmm. Like, oddly enough, that I feel like there's a certain amount of, I guess, maybe freedom when you feel like it's disposable, as opposed to putting it on like in your nice notebook and it has to stay. But like, if it's on a scrap piece, like some of my favorites are on scrap pieces of paper where I picked up something, I'm like, it just pops in my head, or I'm trying to figure something out. It's not like the deliberate act of sitting down to sketch something out, right? Yeah. And so I think it's a kind of a different conversation, but that's the way that I work about drawing things.
So how do you guys do that and convey ideas digitally now? I mean, the one great thing of that I absolutely love about Zoom, at least, the few things, the one thing, the only thing, all right, fine, you got me, is I love the annotate tool. And then when we're talking through things and people are pulling things up, I'm like, all right, hold it right there, don't move it. And then we'll pull up the annotate tool and draw over the top of it, do a screen cap of it. And, we're able to walk through and talk about those things. And really, honestly, a lot of times I'll actually see some of like the things that I'm sketching pop up in like a red line session where they're like, okay, this is what we talked about here. And, so we're going to, kind of do that. And so I really love the fact, it isn't, I won't say that it's as seamless as it was when you pulled out a roll of trace, but I don't think that we've fully limited ourselves by moving to a more digital distanced thing. I still like the digital distance, but the not digital distance. That's what I meant. The other thing.
Hey, Michelle Grace Huddle has a thing here that I'd just like to kind of touch on for a second. And I kind of brought it up earlier, but like, I use trace. I mean, it is when I'm in the office, but that's when I'm going through iterations. All the sketches that are in my sketchbook, first off, it's a cheap sketchbook, so nothing's precious in here either.
Yeah.
But everything in here happens like during meetings when I'm taking notes. There's not drawings in here that's like, oh, this is how I'm solving a problem. That is what Trace is for. That's iterative.
Yeah.
Iterative. Right.
Take a drink.
All the sketches, I know. All the sketches that are in here are a reflection of a moment in time.
Boredom.
And they live. No, these aren't doodles.
Okay.
But they're a reflection of the conversation. So they're record conversations.
No,
I need to have them.
These are boredoms.
What the hell?
Cormac's ragdoll. Stitch. What was the name of your ragdoll? I know, but it has the same kind of. What was the name of the ragdoll?
I'd never.
What was the name?
Never had a name.
What's his name?
Never had a name.
You always called it something.
Bobby McRabbit.
I'm gonna go back to your.
I think it's Raggy McRagface. Yeah.
There you go. How would you guys name it?
Yeah. I thought there was a name for it. Rags. Bags. I don't know.
Yeah.
Nice.
No.
So Bob
rags.
and Andrew, how often are you guys actually in the office? So you said 50%, Bob?
Yeah. So to deal with people who have kids, you know, when we went through this process, we're like, okay, let's do 50-50. So we went with A/B shifts.
That's a really good point. Is the whole kids thing? We've talked about that on the show. It's just like it's not going back until the school.
Well,
thing
it's an issue, but the challenge that you have is people need to be like in home or at the office on the same days. So how do you my daughter, the school she goes to, it's on 6-day rotation. So its classes are Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday. So every 2 weeks there's 5 days. But what that means is I'm at home over a 10-day period every day of the week, and there's no duplicates. And if you have to put your kid in childcare for certain days, you can't say, hey, childcare center, this week it's going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but next week it's going to be Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
So what we did is we went to the AB shift, and I'm an A. So I go to work. Week 1 is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then work home Thursday, Friday. And then week 2, I work from home Monday, or go to the office Monday, Tuesday, and I work from home Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Wow. So every 2 weeks, the Wednesday is the flex day, but I'm always in the office on Monday and Tuesday, and I'm always at home on Thursday, Fridays, always. Wow. So if you have kids, they can make arrangements and know that those days never change, and it's still equitable. So.
But I'd be surprised if there's a daycare on the planet that would let you do that. I mean,
actually, it's actually not hard because they have capacities as well. So if they're filling out their calendars and you're like, look, I don't need every day, but I need these days, and you can count on those days, then they can plan accordingly.
Yeah, maybe so.
That's why we did it.
And then as far as I go, I'm as far as teaching, I was supposed to be there a lot more than I am, but that's because my students don't show up. And in that sense, I mean, you guys may not be familiar, but at least this semester, the current situation was that as an employee of the university, I was required to be there for in-person class. Mm-hmm. The students were allowed to have the option of whether or not they wanted to come to in-person class or whether they wanted to be online. Wow. Well, in the summer or whatever, when they registered, out of my 45 students that I teach, there was like 5 that said they wanted to stay home. And in reality, there's probably been about 5 students that actually ever showed up in person the whole semester.
How big is the class?
Well, I have 2 studios of 20 to 22 people each.
Okay.
Which is a lot in a design studio, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're not even coming to the studio, right? And it's really difficult. I think I'm curious as to how it's going to be because I'm teaching a freshman. Like this was their first semester in architecture school, and they did not have any sort of studio experience. And they're probably not going to have it in the spring either, right? I mean, the way things are going.
Right.
And so like, how does that even, I feel like it's like next year, if everybody gets to go back to normal, they're going to be like starting over because they don't really understand like what studio is about, right? And how you kind of do it. And studio cultures in academia is already on the decline anyway, just because of the laptop and things like that, right? Where people just
mobility.
Yeah, their whole life is portable, so they'd rather work on a couch at home or something. But I think this was even stranger to kind of deal with. But also at the same time, I think there's a lot of ways that we're trying to figure out how to push studio culture, and it could be that there's some kind of backlash from like the second and third year students that are missing that, even though they didn't realize how little it was. But now that they don't have any of it, they're like really kind of. It may come back with gusto with some of them, I guess is what I'm getting at, because they didn't realize how much they missed it. It'll be interesting when this stuff gets resolved.
Do you enforce any kind of like cameras on kind of stuff, or can you?
Oh yeah, yes, yeah. I mean, it has to be in my syllabus at the beginning of the semester, but yeah, because otherwise, although it's funny, it took about maybe 4 or 5 weeks, maybe not even that long. And the funny thing is, the students think I'm an idiot, or they must think. Well, I guess maybe some people are, but
they just assume. Yeah,
yeah. But so they took, like in Zoom, you can have a virtual background. Well, they made a video of themselves as a virtual background,
right?
And they put it in there. And like, I'm not going to notice, like every day this week, you're sitting in the exact same spot and you're wearing the exact same clothes. And the light that is on you is exactly the same, even though, you know, it's a thunderstorm outside right now, but you're sitting in the sun. I mean, like, do you think I'm dumb?
Did that actually happen? That happened?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've had several students do that.
It's amazing how much effort people put into being lazy.
I mean, and I don't call them, I don't call them out on it, but I know, except for one guy. One student he busted himself because he turned on that virtual background on accident while he was in the meeting with me. And he was like, "Oh, I don't use that for your class. I use it for this other class that I have." I was like, "Okay." I'm like, "No, because I've seen that background. You're full of crap."
There's no way. I would scorch earth those kids so fast if that happened.
Well, I just know that they're not there, so it's going to be reflected in their grade. I mean,
yeah.
It's not my fault you assume I'm an idiot.
I always love teaching, and
but don't you have to like say, look, I know you weren't in class today. This is what happened. Bam! Like there's some record of it, because at the end of the semester, if you say, well, you had 5 unexcused absences, so like, no, I don't. And you're like, yeah, because you're using this, and like, no, I wasn't. You don't have any proof. You can't prove that. Like, there's no documentation from you.
When you have screenshots of it, yeah.
Is that what you're doing?
Yeah.
Do you record them?
Yeah.
Kids is the worst.
Some of them I record, yeah. But then it gets to be too much. I mean, it's look, 4 hours at a time, recording 4 hours of studio. I mean, God, I need a whole other server for that.
Yeah. When I was teaching, and at the end of the quarter, it would be like, "Hey, how come you gave me this grade?" And I would just start the conversation. Well, here's how you earn this grade, because it was all about that. Like, it was, you have to position it that way, and even at the beginning of the quarter, you do that. You say, "Here's how you're going to earn a good grade in this class," and you lay it out. And then you finish it up with that exact same sentiment. And it's just like, it gets a little bit tiring at the end. But I think it's kind of crazy, the stuff we have to deal with nowadays.
Yeah. My favorite sentiment that I tell them is like, when I give them like deliverables for the class, like for whatever the project is, I say, this is a minimum. Minimum equals average.
Right.
And you know what an average grade is? An average grade is a C. And they're all like, wait, what? So like, that's how I work at it. I'm giving you the minimum amount to do. Yeah. And guess what? The minimum that's not excellent. That's the minimum.
Right.
Yeah. Minimum is not excellent.
Yeah. I don't know how else to word it. So if you just do these things and you expect to get an A, that's really not how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not getting code.
Go ahead, Cormac.
I was just going to say, you're not getting capital A architecture out of a code minimum building.
Right. I know. I was like, yeah.
I was going to say, Andrew, this might have some value to you, or at least to the architecture school there. So earlier this week, I got asked to be, I don't even know what the word for it was. It was like a guest juror and it was in the evening, and they gave me, this is at UT down in Austin. They didn't give me any information. They're like, hey, will you be a guest juror, or, for this critique session? And I was like, yeah, it's fine. So I log on. It's from 6 to 8. And there's about 30 people on the call. It's me, another professor from UT, a guy named David Heyman, who's pretty awesome. And then all these students. And they just kind of launch into it. And I had to say, hey, wait, time out. Can we, like, what are we talking about here? And so they said, okay, well, let me explain it. And it wasn't specific to the student. It was the idea that this was an open crit session in my case, it happened to be for first year students, to where any first year student could practice presenting their project and get feedback on it. So everyone presented was from a different class. It was for a different project, right? There was a little Wild West to the whole thing. And part of what we were to do was just to talk about, like, how did their presentation go? It wasn't so much, hey, you should put a put a bird on that or something. It was okay.
The
you start off-
clouds.
yeah. Or it was like okay, you introduced the project, like you're missing this story, or you mentioned these things, but I never saw it show up in the rest of your presentation. And I
Right.
thought, this is genius. This is also a genius way to deal with this lack of a studio, because the first time they get up and talk about their project isn't in front of their classmates, and it is in front of the professor. And they do these with regularity. So it's not like they do one and then in a week they present to their final presentation or whatever. And so they always get some outside person and they pull in a professor and they do it in the evenings, and you might show up and nobody comes that night, right? They might say, in other words, it's like, you hit the little raise your hand bit and they'll go, okay, Jill, you can go next. And then Jill presents for 5 or 10 minutes. Then she ends and they go, okay, does anyone else want to present? And someone else goes, okay, yeah, I'll go. It was actually really amazing. It was great. I thought it was a genius idea to deal with this COVID. I asked everybody, I go, where are you?
Yeah.
I'm in Houston. Oh, I'm in Bastrop. Oh, I'm in Fort Worth, because none of them are going into studio. School
Oh yeah.
closed.
I think I have some students that are in Mexico.
Yeah.
Actually.
Wow.
But yeah, I think that's
awesome.
interesting, Bob, like to do that. I mean, I try to do that anyway, like with my students, to spend the time to say, talk about these things and don't talk about these things. But it probably would hold a little more weight to have that happen from someone else. I mean, because it's the same discussion you and I always have about students presenting their work, and 99.5% of them are terrible at it because they talk about all the wrong stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry about all the stuff they failed at.
I just did that both for a friend last week at Temple, and I'm doing it for a professor friend of mine at Auburn, and we're coming in and doing that. And most of the time, like the one at Temple, same thing, Bob, had the same experience. I didn't know the project, and they just kind of like launched into like their site specific thing. I'm like, excuse me, can you like, where? I was like, I understand Philadelphia a little bit, but I have no idea where your project is. Can you like roll through it and stuff? I was like, yeah, I read the syllabus and I do understand where it was. I did a little bit of like Google searching before, but I'm not the one presenting, and I always kept kind of like driving home. I'm like, look, you control the narrative. What you say and what you show are got to be very deliberate. So I totally had that same experience, Bob.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
But it was
Go
cool
ahead.
because every project was different, though. So it wasn't like they needed there was no syllabus. There was no, and the people on the call, me and David Heyman, of the 30 people, of the 30 students that were on the call, only 2 of them were in his class. Everyone else was like from some other professor, some other studio. So there wasn't this setup. Let me explain my project to you. It was part of the presentation was that unveiling of like, here's the story, here's the objective, here's what I did, that sort of thing.
And it was really about the presentation, not the project. And essentially, I mean,
A lot of it, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about the things that you're saying and whether your words are matching the images that I'm seeing, and that they're supporting one another, kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting. That would be useful to do it from that kind of standpoint. I think where it's just kind of a randomizing event where it's not necessarily anybody that knows anything about the project.
And the good thing about it is that you
makes you hone
frame
your skills.
Yeah, but you frame it in a way.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, but you frame it in a way, basically, Andrew, that when you're talking about this, I mean, we go in cold to, give presentations to land projects. I mean, this is business development. And when we sit down and we have to convince them about, they've got like what project they want us to, present to, but, we're presenting ourselves, we're presenting our capabilities, we're presenting everything else. And so, you can always kind of like, and then there's always that one person, once you land the job and you're given a presentation, they've never seen this from Adam. And they want to see, like start from scratch. I mean, literally, I'm at 95% construction documents on something, and we're using a specific material right now, and they've never used this particular material. But I had to give a presentation on not only why we're, not only the material itself, but why we're actually using it. So I had to give them kind of like step back in time and let's talk about the decisions that moved this electrical room to this location and why I can't have, an interstitial space to collect the, to basically act as a, water barrier between your electrical panels and all of this other stuff. I have to do this. And then I had to kind of went through this whole thing and explain to them. And the good thing about it is that, again, half these people didn't even know that, one, the project existed, or two, that, they may have like at one point in time been a part of like a presentation a year ago. And then they're like, wait, I thought your electrical room was on the second floor. Now it's on the fourth floor. Why? Those kind of conversations. So, I mean, I agree with Bob that, the fun thing about some of these things where you've got like this guest juror that has absolutely no either affiliation with the studio or the school or whatever is just, they've got to learn how to present to people who have no idea what the project is. So what we're getting at.
Did you get into like actually like image making? Did you get into that level of detail? Like how they're actually picking the perspective to talk about, like to support what they're talking about, or was it just about what they were talking about?
Well, keep in mind, this was first year studios, so they don't have like the skill set.
It's not architecture. It's like abstract things. Yeah.
Yeah. Like one of the young women, she'd built a model using like white, like poster board and painter's blue tape to hold it together.
Yes.
And another person ended up
No.
And it was
not a yes. That's a no.
It was rough. But you know what? We could see it. We could have the conversation, and it was malleable, and it was process oriented. So it was not look at this pristine, beautiful, finished product here. It was a communication tool. And so,
which is okay if it was not a final model. If it was just a process model, then that's fine.
It wasn't. Yeah. And the truth is we weren't there to talk about, because I have an issue with craft on sometimes these models, because like when we did portfolio review, we talked about you should include a model. Part of what we covered was the craft of how you built that model says something about who you are to people like me beyond the design of the thing you built. Like I can say, is there materiality to it, or did you pay attention to your corners line up? Is there glue dripping off it? Is there burn marks on your, the way the wood was cut? Like there's attention to detail. Yeah. And when you compare one to the other, like one that has it versus one that doesn't, like if you're saying, well, which one's better, you're going to infer some things by the craft and the attention to that craft of one model over the other.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. That right there is one of the hardest things to convey in the current situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I can't show and sort of teach students how to make a model like virtually. I mean, I can like, here's how you use an X-Acto knife, but it doesn't it doesn't translate unless they're able to physically see it. Right. So I've got some of my freshman students that look like they chewed it into pieces and then glued it together with a hot glue gun that was like not working 100% of the time. And it drives me bananas.
Strings dripping.
Oh
down
yeah. It was some of it was terrible. And that was like final models. And I was like trying not to just blow a gasket. Right. But
in the professional sense right now that people aren't making models, maybe they're 3D printing stuff, whatever. But, and on the rendering side of things, renderings are free. Like really nice looking renderings are totally free. You could just pop them out like this, right? Use an Enscape, whatever. And to me, there's like a fundamental disconnect on the fundamentals of image making, right? And so because images are free, I'm going to pop out 20 when I should have been able to only do 3 good ones that actually tell the story of what I want to talk about. And they're not good, right? They're just not good. And so
we have that Revit does that problem too.
Everything,
from here we don't need.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
so are you guys trying to address that at all? Are you thinking about that? Because to me, like that is something that needs to be addressed in the school side of things, but also in the professional side of things, right? Because I see people who work on teams like Andrew right there. No, like people work on teams and they're making images that suck. Like they're just not conveying any information. They're just there because I needed to put something on a page, and and you've got to get back to like the basics of how you make an image and how it conveys what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I talk about that all the time. I mean, I consistently try to. I mean, while I say, all right, this is your project, and you have to have 4 sections, but make sure that they're like useful. Like, don't just. I mean, and the thing is because now, like, especially like, I mean, I'm teaching younger students now, but when I was teaching older students in previous years, that like I'd give them the minimum, right, and it was like 2 sections or whatever, and they'd cut 8, but they're crappy locations, right? They don't tell me anything about the project, or they don't support the idea that they're trying to convey, right? It's like, oh, well, I can slice this piece of cake 100 times, so there they are, and I just put them on here, and I'm like, that doesn't show me anything more than this one or that one, and then none of them show it so much.
It
looks like so much work. Yeah,
I'm an amazing student.
Yeah.
I did 1,000 sections.
Yeah, I can like just scrap out all this work, but and I do this even now, with other professionals. I'm like, what is this section detail actually showing? What, tell me what I'm supposed to be learning from this section detail, because if I don't understand what it is that you're showing me, sure and shit, none of the other people are going to understand what that is, and you should bleep that out. But I mean,
language, buddy.
Not going to happen.
but I mean, we talk about it all the time. It's just like, what are the stories you're telling, for this, does this detail exist for any other reason other than to say, hey, look at me, I can cut a section through here.
I think
how long is this thing supposed to go for?
485 minutes
is our master.
300. That's what I tell my kids when they ask me a question that I can't answer. 300.
It
won't be 3. I will not be here for 300.
300
seconds. I'm in.
Yeah, could be anything, right?
Like
Colors,
you can get any grayer.
Were you talking to Frosty? Is that
So serious question.
Dieter Claus, his architect brother.
I like how Evan's frozen.
I'm not frozen.
You're
the only one that must be frozen.
He's frozen on my screen.
Your computer's overheating. So
who knows?
Pedal faster.
When you're working from home,
you and Andrew are
Zoom,
fine, but
you're on Zoom all day long.
Locked down.
Who's wearing shoes?
Is he talking
during Zoom meetings?
Talking. Yeah, never.
No,
yeah.
I can't hear him.
No shoes.
No shoes.
See, Bob, he's locked out. He's gone.
Where I live is too hot. I don't want. I mean, like, I don't need to encage my feet while I'm sitting here at a desk all day.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you. I was just wondering.
So, Andrew, let me ask you this, students.
But I mean, I do wear pants and stuff. I've never. I don't. Well, I'm not. Well, I mean, I pretty much dress like how I would if I was going to be leaving the house, right? Like, to be in these meetings, but except for the shoe part. But I mean, my students, that's a whole other story. But I've also heard of other people that are like, nah, I'm just sitting around in pajamas, and I'm like, man, I can't do that. It just doesn't feel right.
So let me ask you this, Andrew. How many of your students are live streaming in your class while they're sitting in their bed?
Oh man, a lot. My 8 a.m. class.
Come on,
my 8 a.m. class. I've got I got a couple of students where they're like in bed and it's still dark around them, and I guess like there's a hoodie and they're in the pillow, and this is what I'm getting. And I'm like, are you?
Pillow talk.
Yeah, I kind of have to leave it alone, but at the same time, I just want to yell at them and be like, that is not how you should behave.
Yeah. We've talked about this on the show, but it's like the video, the audio quality is the new suit, right? It is the new dress code for business. Yeah,
and it's insane. It drives me nuts that and some of them I can tell, like, literally they wake up, and it's
roll
on,
over,
like, you turn it on, right?
Yeah,
I keep getting concerned that one day there's going to be a little bit not enough clothing happening in some of them because
Yeah.
they just woke up, and I sometimes I just get nervous. But
Yeah, they give no craps, right? Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah, they don't, right?
Yeah.
And they're students, right? I mean, young people, they got a different idea about what's appropriate, clothing and attire.
Yeah.
I've got-
and I
so
just
I've- I got-
worry.
I got 3 students working from home. I've got a sophomore in college, and he basically will go down, to the basement, and he gets ready for class. The daughter, she gets ready for class and all that other stuff. But then my senior in high school, the boy is probably like yours. It's just like, I'm done with this. I want to just roll out of bed and hit. He's usually the one with the hoodie on.
You hear me now, Bob?
I can.
You back?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
I could hear you and Cormac the whole time. Just Evan just locked up, and he was done.
But I think it was on your end because we were all doing just fine.
No,
And
no,
you
I saw that.
You
Yeah.
locked up for a little bit, even.
Yeah,
That's okay.
I solved it. I left. I came back.
He restarted.
So your time started over.
Oh,
You got 300 more,
Yes,
whatever.
Start back
No.
from zero.
This one, what is it? 8:01. I mean, we're at we still have people hanging on.
It's bedtime.
God, these people are amazing. 13 of you are true warriors.
Wow.
Gluttons for punishment.
Yeah.
Well,
So
we could probably call it here pretty soon. Here, I appreciate hanging out with you guys. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's
it's
a
great.
nice distraction for sure.
it is.
I just want to comment. What is that giant satellite dish you got going there, Cormac? I mean, I know it's a microphone, but dude, that thing looks intense.
It was
That is awesome.
hoping. It was hoping to be the only one that would actually connect to my PC because I didn't want to try this with the Mac because it's an old Mac, and I didn't want to freeze up in the middle. So I'm just using the my Office PC, and so I plugged this in because
he stole
This is-
Flash Gordon's microphone.
I know.
well, this is
I was
supposed
like,
to be plugged. I mean, it is kind of awesome and stuff, but it's supposed to be plug and play, and it plugs and it'll play.
I like how he said
Yeah.
it's kind of awesome and stuff, and I'm like, is it?
Is
Is it awesome and stuff?
It is awesome.
I think it'd make a really cool light fixture, or
You need to be like 1940s guy. Wow, see, let's talk about architecture.
old time
See?
radio. Yeah.
I know. Those Baltimore folks.
Yeah, Bob, get over to that mimeograph machine and send me over a.
Yo, Baltimore Orioles are about to take the field.
against the New York Giants, and there's a.
Yeah,
Oh wow,
we ran that
we
joke.
That was it. Too far.
Round too
Tragic.
far.
Too far. Too far.
All right, so what has everybody got planned for Thanksgiving? Let's take it away from architecture on our ending pass. What are the big Thanksgiving plans for everybody?
We really should have come up with a good hypothetical for the group.
I do have one. I put one in my back pocket, but at this point, I think
It's
I'm
too
gonna
late.
save
Yeah,
it.
I think he's right. That's for the next get together where we can have more people that want to feel the pain.
Yeah. It's,
What are you doing for Thanksgiving then? Since you asked the question,
we only got, if we don't hit 20, you don't get a hypothetical. That's my rule.
nice.
We have a
Oh,
couple
man.
people coming in. My nephew and his wife and little baby are going to come in, but other than that, it's the 4 of us and them. So we have a grand total of 7. But they
Nice.
will all be sleeping in the house.
In the
So-
palatial.
I'm like,
In
where?
the house. Yeah.
Because
Well,
you still got rooms under construction and stuff, don't you?
yeah.
Or
So
no?
all the bedrooms are in functional use because they're all being used as offices. So like at Kate's school, there's all this drama because some freshman had a big party and everyone went to it, and she's got COVID and she's like, "Happy birthday to me." COVID on everybody. And so they're like, some freshmen at her school.
Oh, okay.
And they're like, we got to close the school down because like everybody got COVID that was in like 9th grade. And so,
Oh, bummer.
so from now until the 1st of December, so my daughter's full
Kids are
time
so dumb.
distance learning. Iru's distance learning. Michelle's here. I'm here half the time. And actually, I'm it's a disaster. So what's going to happen is Kate's going to. Is that your cat, Andrew?
No, it's not my cat. For once,
It's
it's not my cat. Normally, it's my cat. He
It's
gets
my
so
cat.
mad. We're recording, man. He's like, "Take the collar off of your cat. I can hear that
It's like
bell."
he's got a bell on it.
Well, I want to know where he's at.
Yeah, like I'm unreasonable when we're recording a podcast. Take the bell off the cat.
That poor cat's like, I can't
You
go anywhere.
jerk.
Yeah, I know. Well, what's
He's
worse
the-
is I got a
he's-
kitten, and like every once in a while he'll climb up my legs in the middle of like class or something like that, and I'm trying not to like jump and scream and curse at this cat as he's like clawing his way up my leg.
Oh my
It's
God.
ridiculous.
Have
So
you
during
seen that?
class, Andrew's reaching down under the desk.
Oh, yeah, I know. There's all this weird stuff going on. That's why I had to zoom in a lot closer so that you can't really see all that kind of stuff.
He's going to get in trouble. You
I
know what I
know.
need to do? Let's see here.
I don't know if anybody
That's
saw this, but there's like a little like orb. So, Bob, you need to go back and take a look at the video. But there was like a little orb floating behind you. I think you got ghosts.
I'm okay with that.
It's just dust.
There you go. I want to make it mine roughly the same size as Andrew's. Here we
Oh,
go.
we're here. You want me to fix it? I can
No,
turn.
no.
I can turn up.
I got it. We're close.
Look at you guys. You look.
Technology.
Now
I
I changed it,
Let me go back.
and I can
to
turn
the-
that one on.
Now
Oh,
what
now
you
you
gonna do? Now what you
Now
gonna
you
do?
flipped it.
No, you changed sides.
No, that's
Oh,
Evan's
are you
moving this
doing
around.
Quit it.
jerk.
Look, I'm too fast. I'm too fast.
I
for
know
you,
that's
Evan.
exactly right. Yeah,
Quick.
like I can make it work.
Oof.
Bring your worst, Evan. Oh, I can't get that one, Andrew. That's on you. You got to fix
I'm
yours.
working. I got to unlock everything. Sorry.
Look, see, I'm on top of it. My game is strong.
Yeah, I have everything in lockdown.
There
Sorry.
you go. That's good.
Here's
I
a little
see you
interesting.
may mess this one up.
I know it. Here, look, I can do this.
So we've
Ready?
got like no plans. We're gonna do like Thanksgiving breakfast. There you go. I like that.
Wait, hold on. I got to get it. Dang it.
Oh, it's gone.
Yeah.
There it is. Hang on.
I
Hang
can't
on.
get
Let
the
me
timing right. Anyway,
do it again.
no, I did it enough. I did it too many times, actually.
But don't you at your office like? Don't they mess around and like they'll have a background that's Bob's face and they'll just cut out the mouth part and then put their
Yes.
face in the mouth and are like
Yes.
having meetings like that.
And you know, the thing that bothers me about that is I showed everybody how to do it. And then
They're using
you
it
know,
against you
and then
like
they
crazy.
used it against me and they're like, oh my God, that's hilarious. And I was like,
That's what
I'm
they
the one
do.
that told them how to do it.
Yeah.
I know. I'm really tempted to pull that at the last faculty meeting of the semester and actually just do it like make my thing the department head.
It's like the Conan O'Brien. You remember when he had Bill Clinton on and they would go
Yeah,
and he'd go,
yeah.
"Ooh-wee," they turned him into like the biggest hillbilly ever. That's what they were doing with my
Yeah.
face.
That's funny.
I'll
So
take
you're
it as
just
a
hanging
term
out,
of
huh?
endearment. Yeah, just hanging out.
And I was
took a
talking
week,
to Evan.
I took a week off though, so as of the end of day Friday, I have a client coming. Well, a potential client coming in on Monday in the office, but that's it. Other than that, I'm on PTO the rest of the week.
My kids have the whole week off for Thanksgiving.
Mine don't. It's
Yeah.
super weird. Yeah. Yeah. So it's my birthday on Monday. So that's my Thanksgiving week. It's always like right there and
No
it
one
gets
cares.
lost.
Happy 60th birthday, Evan.
Thank
You look
you.
great.
Thank
look,
you. Yeah.
You barely look 60.
I
so-
know. I know.
That's okay. At least it's. I mean, mine's like really close to Thanksgiving to Christmas. That's way worse. I mean, granted, I think any birthday that's sort of in this holiday time
You get
of
forgotten.
November to just you're
Yeah.
completely screwed.
Yeah.
Like I got so jealous as a kid. Like when my sister's birthday was in June, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
There's nothing.
where's
around.
my second set of presents? What the crap is this? You know?
Yeah. It's
Yeah, if your
when
birthdays
you're.
are on if your birthdays are on Christmas, they just take one of your Christmas presents and hold it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. They just give it to you early. Here it is.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I need something like I want stuff at different times of the year.
Everybody wanted
Yeah.
their birthday during school, right? So that there was a.
Oh
celebration.
yeah.
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 You
I
know
never
you're a
had that
grown
either.
man, Andrew. You're a grown man. You can change your damn birthday.
That's debatable. That's
I don't
debatable.
think that's how that works, Cormac.
You can
I can change my name. I don't think I can change my birthday.
Hey, speaking of changing names, Evan, I think you should change their names.
Oh, look at that. Let's do it. I don't want him. I don't want him to leave.
Okay, look, we're down to 11. I think we need to punch out before we get to single digits.
Pretty good idea.
That'd be my recommendation to the group.
Yeah, bye, everyone.
Yeah,
All right, let's call it. This was fun. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. It's been a good
Thanks.
time.
Hey,
Yeah.
thanks for letting me join in. All right, we'll
Yep,
talk to
thanks.
everybody. Thanks,
Right.
guys, on
Yep.
YouTube.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, thanks to the other 11 people out there. Because how many of those numbers actually count us? Because I know I have it open. So I'm I'm one of the viewers.
Yeah, close it.
Thank you,
That
Andrew.
makes me feel worse.
Been good.
Yeah, Andrew, close your YouTube.
Okay,
Let's
hang
see
on,
if it
give me a
goes
second.
down.
Thanks for.
Because we're just watching with bated breath.
I just dropped it. Did it change?
It still says 11, but we got to wait.
Uh.
Oh, it did. That's us. That's even it's so embarrassing.
So we are at single digits.
Going down to
Yeah,
10.
I just closed mine too.
We've been in
So,
single digits all night.
I know. Oh, it's
I
embarrassing.
just didn't know it.
I know it. All right.
Pathetic.
It was a fun
I'm gonna go eat
experiment.
dinner.
Thanks for
thanks
hanging out.
everybody. We'll talk
Yep,
to you soon.
sounds good, guys.
Later.
All right. See you.